first series of the day in day number 2 here in the Age of Empires 4 Pro League qualifiers. 3 versus 3, we're going to have Double Agent Pangolin up against Get on the Deer. And these two teams, this should be a blaze of glory. Every single one of these names I've noticed at some point being in either the top 300 or over half the lobby in the top 100. You know what? I'm going to stop hyping them up. They're going to hype themselves up. Let's get them on screen right now. Here we go. Here are the lads you're looking for. So we got the Aussie boys playing as Team 1 here. That's Seither, that is Vegie, and that is Dinkey King, all from Australia. And their opponents, I believe, are all from China, or at least given that their name was originally needed translating, I believe they're from China. I think Neptune is. We've actually cast Neptune before on the channel. Flash and ShinkuPrPr, we haven't really been able to feature in the past, but I know that they are in that kind of top 300 to 500 range, at least on the leaderboards. So, like I said, really talented lobby all around. We're past that situation where, like, a fanboy gets into Beastie's lobby and gets butchered by them after attempting a very kind of niche strategy. 1 second, I just realized one detail I forgot to do yesterday. Apologies for this. I did forget to update all these. So ignore all this crap on your screen for the first 30 seconds while I quickly update them. So yes, we are going to have Double Agent. We might just call them Double Agent Pan. I really need to get a longer one of this. Get on the Deer, though, fits perfectly. So thank you to those lads. I should have put Pangolin in, actually. I know what a pangolin is. If you don't, it's an adorable creature. Go look it up. You'll mistake it for an armadillo, like most people do. But let's focus on the game, because the game is what matters here, right? We've got to open this up with Dry Arabia. Remember, these are all best of 3s, so hopefully this one will go the length. So far, the ones we've cast, we've yet to see a map 3, which means that all these series so far have been decided by Dry Arabia, followed up very quickly by, I believe it's Hill and Dale, every time Hill and Dale, which is interesting because there was a little bit of flexibility. I was hoping to see some Danube. I thought Danube would be really great for these 3v3s, but everyone's been dodging it so far. But all I know is opening, we are going to have that mirror match situation, right, where everyone just picks the same thing. And it makes sense with Dry Arabia. I've already talked about this in previous series. I think Dry Arabia, this is the way to play it in a 3-on-3. It's all about rapid aggression, right? Speed, momentum, whatever you want to do. You meme it to the Dr. Disrespect, that's fine. But the whole concept is that you have Mongols, France, and Rus. All 3 civs have easy access to cavalry, and the concept is that you run across all this open ground and quickly exploit the fact that your opponents are lacking defensive positioning, right? It's not like when we're on Hill and Dale. When we're on Hill and Dale, you've got these choke points. You've got this forward kind of natural walling with the cliffs. There's a lot of ways to kind of protect yourself and pad yourself. And that's probably what we're going to get to see in Game 2. I expect to see a lot more greed coming out, right? We're probably going to see HRE in China that are just phenomenal on that map. But the name of the game on here is to group up as quickly as possible with cavalry and then raid either north or south and exploit the fact that your opponent is not in position yet. It's all about timing. Dry Arabia 3v3s is simply timing, folks. And you have to double down. Once you're in for the penny, you're in for the pound. Never back off, because if you ever back off and your opponent is doing something elsewhere on the map, that's when you start to falter. That's when you start to get punished for doing so. The reason Rus fit into this so nicely, by the way, as well, is that typically the Rus player is the greedy factor, right? So we've got Seither and we've got Neptune, and they're both the central player. One important detail to keep in mind whenever you're talking about 3-on-3s, first of all, you can select the central players, who's going to be the central player, by their position in the lobby. So the first one on your team will always be in the center out of your formation. So they purposely, both of them, chose the Rus player as the greedy choice, right? Like, whenever you choose your central one, that's going to be a greed factor because they're further away from the aggression. Usually it comes in on the flanks. Running across the open field to the center on the other side is a much longer endeavor, so it takes a lot longer to get on top of them, hence why usually the pressure comes in on the flanks. So the cool thing about this is that I've seen a lot of teams actually utilize the Rus players in a very, shall we say, greedy fashion. What do I mean by that? I mean that they're not even the person on the flank. Instead, or in the center, rather. They're the person on the flank, right? They're the person who should be exposed and be vulnerable to these attacks. But usually they're not, because the cool thing about the Rus is they're able to actually boost up incredibly quickly and get themselves into the castle age around like the 9-10 minute mark. Usually before these raids start to come online. And these raids are also a little bit pricey, remember. If you're talking about the Mongols early on and you want to go, say, Magadai, that doesn't tend to come out until you have some support. And one cool thing I have seen done so far in these 3-on-3s is amazing to watch out for here, folks, is that you can actually support your Mongol player as a Roost player by going pro scouts, dropping carcasses off for him, and then that boosts his early economy to be able to afford Magadai, and then he plays a very long feudal timing while you then resume booming up to the castle. I want to see if this comes out. I've seen other teams do this already. It's actually phenomenal. Magadai right now are incredibly cost inefficient because your economy just doesn't scale well enough to support it. But these are the kind of layers that we're looking for as the tournament goes on. These players that bring these unique mechanics from certain civs and basically mesh them together, right? Just keep headbutting until you get a new formula. One beautiful thing we've seen already is when we talk about Hill and Dale, which will come up later in the series, China is really great for your defensive elements, right? Usually HRE, one thing we got to see yesterday towards the end that was pretty phenomenal actually was, I believe it was Bra and running as well as, I'm forgetting the third one now. They were called the AoE4 plebs, the uncreative AoE2 plebs. And one thing they tried to do is they actually went for a trade HRE boom, where two players would actually have a front line, and the other one was just basically throwing money at them to try and solve the problems of the world, right? It was proxy wars at its finest in 3v3. And those are the layers I'm looking for. Another cool one that we might get, I'm hoping eventually we get, especially when we get into like the best of fives, is Roos and HRE. That's a combination faction that's amazing because of the fact that the Roos can pick up the dangerous relics and return them for the HRE player. But, you know, we're getting ahead of ourselves, right? We're about to hit that point where rating starts to come out. Let's focus on what's going to be coming, because right now what I'm looking for, Neptune, of course, would have went into Pro Scouts. He's about to complete it right now. I don't want to see any of these other players necessarily getting Pro Scouts. I think France can be very baited into doing it. Meanwhile, in the North, Flash, I don't think you can afford to stop off for it. You can see already he understands this as well. He drops the pastures next to the Uvu. This is a really nice generation, by the way. I don't know if there was a similar one coming out for Vegie. Yeah, Vegie got a really classy one as well. This is really cool. Whenever you can get your Uvu directly next to your TC, it condenses your economy and your military district, right? Which means neither is vulnerable, and it also allows you to double up on the Deerstone. The one risk usually on this layout of Sin for the Mongol player is the gold tends to be further away, which means it can be a little bit harder to initially tap in and get that tech up, which is why, once again, I do want to see the Mongol players hanging around in Feudal longer. One thing that could end up cool here is I think we actually got a perfect matchup. I didn't even mention that either. Not only do we have a matchup, not only do we have both of the Roost players in the center, but everyone is completely mirrored. Sometimes we get this weird distortion where the Mongol players in the north, the other ones in the south, and it opens up this raid access onto, say, the French player. But that's just not the case here. So this is about as skillful as it's going to get so far I've seen in these 3v3s, right? There's no variable that I'm outright giving to one team over the other, which is always exciting to see. Vegie. Very early into a little bit of static force here with the spears. I believe he moved in to try and go for some outpost shenanigans. Words today, guys. But looks like he was not able to get in there. That's an annoying investment as well. When you drop a Rax like this, you really show your intent. And you look on the other side, and Flash, he's actually kept his cards close to his chest, right? He only went for the stable, which led him to this point where if he wanted, he could go back for the Pro Scouts. But alternatively, he can just scale up into like a rushed castle if they see a greedy opportunity and look to Lancers. He could also switch into archery ranges and drop Magadai. And that detail we talked about dropping off carcasses hasn't occurred yet. Seither is being a very greedy boy. But that greed is going to reward him at least. He's about to crack Castle Age. Meanwhile, on the other side, it's going to be slightly quicker out of Neptune. And Neptune already prepping the trip archery range here. Meanwhile, in the south, Dinkey King looking for a raid in. Trying to make himself the better Frenchman here, but the outposts make it very hard to get in without being seen. And the interesting part is Shink did drop a mining camp here. So he was looking to be greedy. He was looking to go for that secondary TC, and he did get it. This is really cool. I don't think, this wasn't done by Dinkey. Dinkey's playing a lot more sacrificial. Meanwhile, there's a lot more greed coming out from the team in the north, the double agent Pangolins. They really have so many greedy elements to this, right? You haven't just got the Castle Age coming out the Roost player. You've also got the fact you've got multi-TCs on your French player already. And even the Mongol here, right? What's his standing army? If we look at the count, it's like, what, 3 units? Okay, 9. He's got a few out in the field, and I think that's mainly his scouts. The point is that he's not building up yet. He's looking for scalability. It's almost like they're trying to punish, get on the deer for doing too much of that, right? They're not actually pressuring. They're too busy kind of eco-scaling 1 or 2 of their characters while coming in with very flimsy attack forces. So I think it's really important in the coming minutes. Get on the deer need to ramp up fast, right? They actually need to try and find a way of putting a dent into the greed approach of Double Agent Pangolin. Problem is, with Horseman coming out and only Cluster of Spimmin here. This ram push is going to feel really weak. I think it's too late. So Horse Archers are already being produced. There's Horsemen here, so you'll have a way of burning the rams down. You need assistance right now, and here it comes. Seither's on the way up. Seither has started to get those Horse Archers out. He never actually dropped off that eco we talked about, though. So we're going to see a very delicate state for Vegie soon. You can see he's drying up on the food front soon. So there's going to be a critical point in his economy where it can't support military units and like the siege weapons as well. He's going to have to make a choice, and you can see it in the numbers already. Vegie barely has any surplus wood because he's immediately throwing it all into the archers. And rams on the way in. Not being guarded yet, either. There's a lot to get through here. These pastures, you don't want them to go down. They're very flimsy, 750 HP, but they cost 150 wood each. So it would be frustrating to lose these. Neptune moving in. These archers are outnumbered. He needs assistance right now. Seither is coming in. Oh, the Wololo, though! Pushing him even deeper. He's able to shift past. There's not enough units here from Neptune to actually threaten him. A big mistake there. Should have went onto the archers. The static unit would have suffered more against the Wololo trying to reposition, but instead they're fine. All archers will trade out mostly evenly here. In the meantime, Baron Rams are getting through the buildings, remember. This is double value for Vegie, right? He's countering his counterpart, but he's also getting additional value. Not only is he raising these buildings worth 150 wood, he's getting gold and food to do so, right? That's the delicate balance of Mongol on Mongol, right? It's actually such a bigger hit to your economy and your differentials when you actually lose buildings. But in the end, it's going to be Vegie losing the army. And if he loses this ram as well, that's going to even up the cost for the most. Back off for the moment. Meanwhile, the south is very peaceful. Well, I say peaceful. The villagers are vibing and occasionally dying. But right now, France and France are both not engaged in this at all. You can see that switching up, though. Dinkey, this is cool. If he raids into the Rus economy, he's probably not going to notice. But he has to go all the way through the base. The best way this could have played out is if the tree line was on the southeastern side. But this is really well played by Neptune, taking the less risky trees first so he can focus on the front where the initial battle is going to occur. Flash. Able to get a little bit of a buffer zone. Right now, I'm concerned about the hit Vegie took. And you can see he's trying to fix it now into the pastures, but he's so late. Flash is definitely going to crack into castle ahead of the Mongol player, and that might be the difference maker at this rate. And still, no secondary TC out from Dinkey. This is my worry, right? It's like, when I look at the way that Get on the D have played this, they went ultra-aggressive on 2 players and didn't really achieve much with it. Meanwhile, on the other side, their opponents went ultra-greedy, right? Flash only really built a big army in response after building the pasture district. And then ShinkuPrPr gave himself the flexibility and the scalability via multi-TCs, right? And now he's going to ramp up on the night production, and he will exceed Dinkey King in the next 2 to 3 minutes. So there is a clock now ticking in which Get on the Deer need to strike and find value, or they're going to be under pressure. Their only other alternative is if they scale up themselves. But I don't see any signs of Dinkey getting a second TC. He still has nobody on the stone either. Oy, oy, oy. For the moment, numbers are still juicy, though. Dinkey up at 17. ShinkuPrPr, he can't invest in a castle yet. He has to get a standing army. Right now, though, he's just trying to mirror the movements and keep Dinkey focused on him. As long as Dinkey is here, he's not giving them that gap close in the top side of the map that would allow them to close out and kill off Flash. We haven't checked on the relics yet. How's it looking for Seither? Yeah, so he's actually got 4 under his influence. Meanwhile, on the other side, Neptune suffering only has 2. So that gold trickle will matter a little bit. The coolest thing you can do with it in a 3-on-3 in this scenario is enable your other teammates to tech up or get more knights, right? Don't use the gold yourself necessarily. Trade it over. There are some techs that are worth it. I'd say one big thing that's underrated is definitely the Saint's Reach. We've seen that used amazingly before now in 1v1 situations. But obviously, the big one's going to be getting his hands on the projectiles, the rivets. After that, though, I definitely think you should throw money the way of your French player. Like we said, Dinkey's going to be out-ecoed at this rate. At the moment, he has the military influence, but it's only a matter of minutes before that completely dissipates into nothing. And tech up's underway. Both French players are lagging behind. Everyone else has reached into castle now, and this is where Lancers can start to come into play. Engagement coming out. Neptune wastes the scouts to buy a little bit of shots into the knights, but it's not going to be enough to really drop many here. Maybe 1 or 2, but the rest should get away. There is a wrap coming in. Seither's trying to reinforce here. He actually has the numbers against Neptune. Let's see if he can actually push it through. This is the problem of playing Knights in this situation, right? The Horse Archers will instantly and constantly kite you out. It's not as bad as being up against Magadai, but it's still frustrating to deal with. The point is that they're holding influence here, right? They need to position themselves so they always threaten a raid. And that's important. Like we said, the greed that's been shown by Team 2 here, by Double Agent Pangolin, needs to be punished somehow. This is maybe the one way you can do it. For the moment, I just don't feel like they're getting punished at all. Like, Flash is scaling. I think he's scaling a bit better than Vegie, actually. Yeah, the numbers kind of look like it as well. I think it's that hit of that Battering Ram investment backfiring and losing your whole army the way you did, right? Like, it's so costly. But this is where you can make a pivot maneuver, right? He's still got one of the Rams. He's building in the Mangonels now. I don't think Siege Engineering's came... No, it hasn't. Okay, this is dangerous for Flash. They have to protect the Mangonels, and he didn't invest in Spears, and the Lancers are going to come in. Mangonel shot out as a big fat whiff, though, and they can just move in and burn this down. There's no one to repair this up. That's a waste by Vegie. Jumps the gun once again, and will pay the price. Man-at-Arms, although they are tanky, they don't really do much else against these Lancers. They last a while, they're a little bit frustrating, but your army's going to be wiped. And even this Battering Ram won't get you some reward on the side. The villagers move out, and they raise hells. They'll burn it down. And I'm concerned about the fact that every time Vegie's attempting these moves, there's no backup, really, right? Instead, his teammates are running mobile raids. And it seems cool until you realize that quite quickly, ShinkuPrPr is starting to match the count. It's 15 to 21. Remember, just a minute or two ago, ShinkuPrPr was being doubled up on the night count. So that difference is disappearing very quickly for Dinkey. And Dinkey showing no signs of teching up anytime soon. He finally switches over to the TC. My concern is how far behind the French player on the other side are you right now? Well, this might fix the problem. Raid in. Not enough room for all the villagers. He can dive straight through as well. And that's what he's going to do. Neptune moving across to try and counter this out. But in comes Seither to counter out the Horse Archers. He has more, remember. So he will have to back up. Can they race this to the ground? I think so, and they should. They need to commit to this. Getting rid of the TC would be big here. So Horse Archers will counter out. Neptune does have the buff coming out from the Warrior Monks. I think he went for the Saint's Blessing range as well, so that's made a big difference here. Half damage done on the TC. There's enough Knights to finish this off. He just needs to focus fire now with the animation cancels. And meanwhile, Seither will trade it favorably against Neptune. Neptune has some more Horse Archers coming in, but it's not going to change the fact that this TC will fall, and that is going to stun ShinkuPrPr. Remember, there's 10 villagers in here as well. That would be a big hit to his economy. Here they come. Oh, but they can't hang around. They have to back away. Meanwhile, counter raid coming in. ShinkuPrPr looking to punish Dinkey in response. And right now, how's the count looking? It's 64 on Dinkey. Meanwhile, Shinka, he's down at 36. He's been hit hard. Dinkey's cruising at this point. And with Seither regroup and bringing in new Horse Archers, these French Knights will not last long. And that means Dinkey is more likely to crack into Castle Age ahead of his French counterpart. And that's going to put a lot of pressure now on Flash to deliver, right? Now you've got two weaknesses, one on each side. When you look at the north, Vegie is behind Flash. But now, in the south, it is ShinkuPrPr lagging behind Dinkey. I'll have to see what they can do here. Anyone who's unfamiliar with these guys, by the way, these are all top-level players. I believe I've seen Seither, Neptune definitely have been in the top 100 at one point. Flash and Dinkey, I think I've seen in the top 200. And Vegie and ShinkuPrPr, I believe I've seen in the top 300-400. I'm not going to pull away from this game to check right now. We can check in the intermission, but trust me, these guys are high level. And you can feel it, right? You can feel that they're actually very reasonably matched considering how close a lot of this is. It's small indecisions. It's inefficiencies, right? I think the issue that I'm seeing is in the early game, these teams didn't really sync up and stack up quick enough, and it put them at a weakness. And that's why now we have this kind of pivot, this lack of balance, right? Where it's balanced in favor of the Aussies in the north and then in favor of the Chinese in the south. I say that, it's quickly switching around though. And I got that the wrong way around, sorry. Aussies in the south, Chinese in the north. But I've got to give it to Vegie. He's starting to hold his own here. He's getting the outpost network in. That's going to allow him to push through and get in onto the infrastructure. This is dangerous for Flash. I think he played this wrong. The Lancers are too easily countered, but here come the crossbowmen. He baits him in. He used the arrow as well. And they'll be able to stack on top. They hold their own. Lancers now coming in to re-engage onto the Man-at-Arms. Man-at-Arms pushing through into Springholds. But Vegie, he's outnumbered here. Once again, going to be bottled away. He's trying to get the Mangonel in range, but the Sprills are coming out. One more hit needed to end it. Dodges out the shot. Takes a decent amount of damage, though, but it doesn't matter. He's got the advantage in terms of numbers and in terms of quality here. Vegie is going to be buffered off once more. In the meantime, in the south, there is a raid through once again. Dinkey and Seither syncing up to push past ShinkuPrPr and straight into Neptune. Neptune, standing army, being reduced to about 15 horse archers at this stage. He needs to replenish quickly, but he needs some assistance. And I think this is getting closer to done. ShinkuPrPr can't recover. Look at this. He's stuck. He's always stuck with 20 in TC. He's not doing anything in this game right now. And it means they can run through and access Neptune next. Neptune, who will have a lot of exposed economy, being up at 39 villages. Knights keep chasing away Neptune's horse archers. Meanwhile, Seither quick on their tail. In the north, no push in just yet. But this is the problem. Flash, he keeps defending, but he's not doing anything else. He's standing here. He's building this army. He's rebuffing his opponent away, right? He's getting that gap, and then he's not exploiting it in any way. He's not pushing in on Vegie, and he's not helping in the south. It means they're slowly but surely losing this game. Seither. Poking and prodding again. Knights are looking to wrap in. Need to be careful. This close to base is going to give an edge to Neptune. And here it comes. Flash, he finally gets involved. Charging in with the Lances. They get in range with the Yam movement speed. He could be the difference maker here. This is what they needed all along. What can he do? Can it be enough? Crossbowman pushing back the horse archers quickly. Seither hesitant to engage. Wants to just regroup. Knows he has the number advantage. Knows that this is turning quickly into a 2 versus 3. They need to get their third online. And that's why Vegie is pushing out quickly with the crossbows. Horse archers still in favor of Seither in the meantime, even on the home field for Neptune. And these trades are not favorable. He can't even come out for a second or he loses half the army. Meanwhile, the crossbowmen are scary, largely clumped together, but they've lost the Yam. You need to back up with a flash. You're stuck in the field too long, you're going to start to suffer. And he's building the Mangonels. Yeah, for me, what I need to see out of Flash right now is some outposts. Build an outpost near your teammate's base. Build an outpost towards your opponents. You need to have that flexibility, that dynamic movement, right? We saw how powerful those Lancers are when they're quicker than the Horse Archers. But usually, you're the same speed. It's similar to what we were seeing out of Dinkey when he was chasing down Neptune, right? Where his Yellow Knights can't actually touch them unless they turn around to fire. So you need to exploit the movement speed. That's the biggest deal about Mongols. Ever since they nerfed Springles, it's the age of Yam for Mongols. And look at this. They're going to be on the home field. They're going to have the Yam to their advantage. Vegie's already in the base, though. They need to move fast, and they're not moving fast enough here. Crossbow's getting across. Seither has to back away. He is 1v2ing right now. Needs to back up. Looks for the reinforcements. Where the hell is Dinkey? Dinkey? Okay, his knights are in. It's a small group, though. However, not many crossbowmen here to defend. Flash, he had the main army away from home. It means you have to arm all the villagers, all the children, all the wives, hope that they can hold until the men make it back from the war. However, those men might be in trouble. Crossbows and archers aren't going to last long against these horse archers. And once again, Neptune hasn't recovered the count. Mangonel's going to push them away. Vegie hesitant to keep committing here, running out of an army quickly, but still the difference maker is Seither. Seither seems to always be the one with the biggest army at the end of this. Can he keep that up, though? With 162 kills to his name, it's looking like he might be able to. Where is Dinkey at? Dinkey, he's taking so long to arrive now. His knights have been dying too fast. Really, he needs to look for a tech up. Instead, they're being buffeted away again. And Vegie, in the meantime, trying to build those Springles, needs to counter out the Mangonels that are being committed to. Horse Archer count is starting to go Neptune's way. And now let's calm down for a second. Yes, he did. He's done this. I knew it. I knew it when I saw the numbers. I knew it when I saw the buff. He had to have, right? And it looks like Seither has now joined him. Guys, do not sit on these unique techs, right? The Abbey of Trinity gives you access to 2 unique techs. The Improved Blessing here, which increases the damage you gain from Saint's Blessing by an extra 1. And the other one they both got increases the range by, I believe it's 3, which is a huge buff zone. It means that you can actually engage in melee with your Warrior Monks, and then at range distance, your Horse Archers will be juiced up. It's so incredible. Flash. He's starting to recover quickly now. This is the problem. These are your sieges, right, on both sides, but Vegie doesn't have a siege army to compare. Meanwhile, Dinkey, stuck in the south, never reinforcing. It seems just irrelevant at this stage that ShinkuPrPr doesn't exist, because although Dinkey has an economy, I don't see where he's using it anymore. There it is. He's going for the Royal Institute. This is an all-in gambit. He needs to win within the next 5 to 10 minutes. The amazing thing about the Royal Institute is if you're stuck in Castle Age looking for a castle end, it is better than going for the Guildhall. Guildhall is greed and scalability. Meanwhile, Royal Institute is all about what do I do in the next 5 minutes. And we're going to have to see if he can do something in the next 5 minutes, because I haven't been impressed so far. Or at least for the last 5, right? His raids were good, but after that, they never were able to close out ShinkuPrPr entirely. And it feels like Dinkey has been slow to recover his own military front. He's starting to stack up on the Knights again, and he will have the edge of making them vet roll Knights. Meanwhile, ShinkuPrPr doesn't have that same luxury, right? He's had to go greedy into these pocket economies. Pocket economies that France is infamous for doing, but is incredibly risky. But in this game, he has nothing to lose, right? He's already been burnt to cinders, so he might as well gamble on that and hope that he can recover quick enough while his teammates push in the north. Neptune. Heavy harassment. Remember, the Gers are undeployed. They have 0 ranged armor. Or anything that's undeployed, really. And look at this Seither. Good lord. This is Tesco's horse meat right here. Buy 1, get 5 free. They need to be careful, though. With 4 Mangonels in the field and no counter siege of a substantial number, this is dangerous. Only 3 Springles here. And now Rams being built. Mangonels, really good at sieging. They're going to begin on the TC. Raid coming straight through. Looking to breach on the line. Lancers lead the way from Flash. Neptune trying to run interception, sniping out as many villages as possible. They're going to start the garrison. Step read out can never stop, though. Vegie, he needs all the gold he can get. He needs more Springles. Those Springles now starting to be traded out. Mangonels continue far. This time under the villager line. And it's a good hit. The follow-up as well. A heavy hit into Vegie's economy. His food is going to be stunted, and that's when Seither realizes he has to go. He wraps in from the south, trying to stick on top of them here. Crossbows are out of position. They don't have the movement speed either. Flash, he's in for a penny, in for a pound now. Springles and Mangonels push further forward. The Mangonels need to switch over under the horse archers to dodge out the shots. Now, Dinkey showing up as well, looking for the wrap in. Seither with a pinch from behind. He's trapped them in. They're going to lose the whole siege army. The front line is going to fold, and so will their siege line with it. Flash is going to lose everything here, and he's being pushed back hard. And he's exposed right now. He took this opportunity when they went aggressive to move out the step readout, so he has a lot of exposed economy if they counterattack. And they can do that quickly now, with Seither having so many horse archers still alive. And the time on that. Seither right now looking like the MVP in this game, time and time again, catching them off guard. That wraparound, that 2-pronged attack, it looks like he's revealed his main arm in the south, so they feel confident, right? They hang around, they get the Mangonels in position, they try to snipe out. And then the pinch from the left, that is the final nail in the coffin, and that is what says goodbye to their entire army. And now they ride across the fields, and they prove exactly why Dry Arabia is dictated by cavalry. Meanwhile, in recovery land, playing Farmville, ShinkuPrPr. He says, guys, I'll be ready for game number 2. Problem is, we need you now, ShinkuPrPr. We need you yesterday, really, to be honest. Because France is back involved in this on the Aussie side, but China doesn't have the same luxury. And this cavalry count is looking grim right now. The differential that is just basically Seither. If he told his teammates to walk away right now, Seither would still evenly trade out with the remaining enemies here. That's how big he is in this game. That's how huge and swollen up his whole economy is. And now the horse archer is going to prove the point. Pushes in once more, forcing Neptune away. They're going to have to forfeit Flash after all this. After all this, with not only Flash now being forfeit, but ShinkuPrPr still kind of in the dust, being left a mile behind trying to recover, it's all going to be on Neptune, and 1 versus 3s don't often go the way of the lower number. There we go, Neptune. Come in again. Mangonel shot in from Vegie is good. And bye-bye, horses. And so many horses dead in this game. Someone is going to report me to Petter at this rate. This is just getting absurd. They're trying to recover on the north side, but the raids come in. Dinkey King. We talked about the exposed economy. The Yam allows you to move quickly with the villages, courtesy of the wheelbarrow as well. But it's still a lot of inactive economy. Even if they survive, they're not doing anything. They're not gathering gold. They're not scaling your army anymore. He's got huge amounts of gold, but no food. And he cannot gather that food because he never moved his food economy off the front line. His TC has already and always remained at the fort of his base, which means it's the first thing to come under attack. Mangonel line building again. And it's their turn to siege. Only this time, they brought ample forces to guard their attempt. And Flash, this time, I don't think he's getting out of this with just a scratch. I think he's going to lose his head. Meanwhile, ShinkuPrPr still sending Ravens to give messages saying we'll be there soon. But the White Walker army has already breached the wall, my lord. And I don't see any signs of reinforcements. And this is a very weak-looking Winterfell. I don't think it's going to be able to hold. Rams even being built into. TC going to die in the next 20 seconds. The Horse Archer army once again unable to breach. And I've got to give credit to the lads. The way they played this, I was hesitant. I was doubtful of the way that Vegie was playing this top side. I felt like they weren't synced at first, but Vegie holds on long enough. Seither booms up like a greedy mofo, and it pays dividends here, giving them the win on Dry Arabia in game 1. Flash, he just wants to watch his base die before he leaves, but yeah, he's finally going to tap out. Game 1 will go the way of Get on the Deer. And I don't think it was as much Get on the Deer as Get on the Horse, and they seem to be reigning supreme in that regard as they open up this series with a win. Honestly, just really well played by them. I'm excited to see how this is going to go as the series goes on. So far, day 1 kind of left me with this feeling like everything's going to be decided in 2-0s, right? Up until like past the qualifiers. But this one feels like it could actually go game 3. We could get a mix-up because we're probably going to be treated to Hill and Dale next. Everyone seems to go towards that. But afterwards, then you have to talk about the possibility of, say, Confluence. I think, no, not Confluence. It's Danube that can come up. And I believe there's one more map available. I'm just going to double check that off the top of my head. I forgot. Highview. So Highview. Highview is the other one that can come up. I would be excited to see some Highview. I think Highview has so much potential because of the lack of accessibility if you deny yourself on the Vision front, right? I think Vision wins Highview, and in a team game, I would be excited to see that come out, especially considering that would probably happen in game 3, where maybe the Mongols come back into play. And I have to say, the Outpost Crawl in conjunction with the Falcons is godly. But I'm getting ahead of myself, guys. That was just game 1. Game 2 likely to be Hill and Dale. And remember, we're probably going to be playing greedy. We might even get treated to a wonder victory. But all that is ahead of us, a few minutes away, so stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 2 between Get on the Deer and the Pangolins here in Age of Empires 4's Pro League. $20,000 prize pool, 3 versus 3. Day number 2 of the qualifiers. And, well, you are getting close to being right in that money. And right now, Seither and the boys, that is the Get on the Deer lads, the Aussie lads, they are 1 game away from cleaning house here and taking down Neptune and his team 2-0. But they are going to have a challenge ahead of them first. They do need to get through their opponents here on Hill and Dale. And it is going to be a full mirror matchup again. This series so far, there's no deviation. Everyone knows what is optimal and what they want. We're going to get HRE, China, and the Abbasids on both sides. And here it is. Let's get on our way. Long load in time, but we get there in the end. And it looks like the generation is that line formation. This line formation that honestly is a lot harder to breach and a lot more favorable to the idea of wonder victories. So we'll see if that comes into play. So far, this has been the map to try for on, due to the way that everything just gets congested and bogged down. And HRE does enable you to go into that wonder victory condition. But it does require some tempo control in the mid game. So if we see one team immediately dive into the wonder victory condition, it can very easily backfire. I've seen plenty of teams just immediately try to build one as quickly as possible with HRE. We've even seen one game where the HRE player by the end of the game only had 5 military units. That was the height of his power because he fully invested in his economy and just paid everyone else to fight for him, right? He was the mercenary hire, and it just didn't work out too well. So we'll see if they pivot into that. If we're talking about like mid-game control, it's interesting that there's no deviation here. So the Abbasids is likely to be the Civ that sets the tempo. I say that we have seen some changes in like the conceptualization of what the roles are in these teams, right? So I've actually seen a team where the Abbasid was the ultra greedy player and the Chinese player was the rush Civ. So I believe that was the series with Beastie and the Stray Boris. Basically, Beastie hung around in feudal for the entire game. He rushed across to his opponent's side of the map, and he dropped his Barbican Sun and started building outposts. If you haven't seen that one already, it's going to be on the channel soon, if not already at the time of recording when you watch this. So definitely go check that one out eventually. But for the moment, we'll focus on this one. We'll see how this one is going to play out. With Vegie and ShinkuPrPr being the ones manning China, thinking back to the way that Game 1 played out, Vegie was more aggressive. So if one of the Chinese players is likely to do this, it's going to be the lad in the blue, I think. Although, given the formation, I don't know if I'd say it's highly likely. Usually the central player is a little bit more greedy. But I don't think that always fits on Hill and Dale. I think the more important detail with Hill and Dale is the HRE player's location. And both of them are located on the south side. But the difference is that there's a lot less easy points of access to reach in on Dinkey King's side, right? Or rather, it's a lot less on Flash's side. Because he has just straight walls to block here, with a teammate closer by. Keep in mind that the person out this edge is potentially more exposed because the logic is meant to be that although they've got a teammate nearby, there's a lot more like flank potential, right? You have to stretch your attention between two directions a bit more. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the onus usually is on the person who gets this screwed, right? Like Seither right now is further away from his teammates than the other side. These guys are evenly like spread out. It looks a little bit longer for this player in green, but ultimately when you compare it to where Seither's located, he's just sitting on an island right now. And this could be exploitable actually. So one kind of cool all-in potential is if they do go for that aggressive move with China, staying in the feudal and dropping their Barbican aggressively, like we said that ShinkuPrPr could do, he could move across, drop the Barbican close to Seither, and then outpost choke him in. And that would force all the attention to run far across to try and get him out of that dodgy situation, meanwhile preventing him from accessing his own economy. This is theory crafting, though. It's a very pocket strategy. I think the only reason BC done it is because Mongols was banned in game number 2 because he already picked it, and he wanted to find a way to basically play Mongols again. Because that's essentially what the outpost spam is from China. You're basically playing the Mongol opener, where you just oppress them with outposts to block their resource gathering. By the way, I know this is confusing with the teams. I have no way to fix this. I'm really hoping that's another thing that we get with the first big patch. There's a bunch of small UI changes that would be blissful, especially for Spectator. This is one of them. Another one would be a sacred tracker that actually has a countdown as well, because that doesn't exist either. I don't know why. They figured out Wonder Victory is a good idea to have, but this, nope, this just flew right over the head. So fingers crossed we eventually get that. That would be fantastic. But it looks like we aren't going to get any aggressive plays. ShinkuPrPr does still have the option down the line as he's gone to the Imperial Academy first, but I have a feeling he's just going to drop a Barbican defensively. I'm not always the biggest fan of this. I understand the value because you want to boom up the Song Dynasty, but the concept of saving the Barbican Sun until mid-game and then aggressively dropping it next to an objective is actually so incredibly powerful and so underutilized. So tech ups will begin. Abbasid player in this situation is on the stone as well, and I do expect similar on the other side. So yeah, everyone's being the fat, greedy boy. No early tempo aggression coming out from either side, and considering that there's no real cavalry civ until midway through Castle, I don't expect to see anyone setting the tempo in the center of the map, and that also means that both the HRE players should very easily cruise through to the capped out Regnix Cathedral with 3 relics banked. For comparison with those two, by the way, they're more or less even in terms of gathering these relics up. There's one very safe here for Dinkey. There's another one just outside his base. These are the no man's land ones for him, but Flash has to go just as far after the initial 2, right? He grabs these 2, and then he has to run all the way to the center of the map anyway. So no one really got the edge there. I'd say overall relic placements are kind of nice to a certain extent if you need a lot of safety for the Get on the Deer boys, because they've got this relic just outside the base, one inside it, and then one right next to the HRE player. But like I said, with a lack of cavalry, I don't think anyone's going to get aggressed on either side here. It's kind of an interesting twist as well when you think about how day 1 went down, right? We had a lot, and I mean a lot of not greedy, sorry, rushy, overly aggressive, I've got somewhere to be, or holy crap, I need to poop, can we end this game quickly type players, right? But this has a more vibe and feel. This is like your favorite little pub game where you just get to make the pretty base with all the nice roads and the pretty walls. And maybe you win by Sacred Site, or maybe someone, or Wonder, or maybe someone just accidentally DCs and they GG out after you've built everything you need. Looks like second TC is going down already. And I think Neptune, yeah, he has the edge. He gets his down first. The China players are more or less matched on their timing. In fact, slight edge for Vegie. And meanwhile, over here, Seither's already got his secondary TC as well. Drop a mill. Drop a mill right now. Okay, not right now, but I swear to God, if he goes on these berry bushes, I'm going to be shaking my fist. I've seen a few players do this. They forget about it. You should drop a mill next to a berry bush. It doubles the capacity. You're turning a 1,500 food source into a 3,000 food source, right? That's some crazy alchemy, and it's totally worth paying 50 wood to do so. And remember also, the Abyssids do gather from it quicker, so it's even more value. Speaking of which, so far, both of them just opting for deer. Of course, deer are quicker to gather from, even with the increased gathering rate that the Delhi and the Abyssids get. Deer still reign supreme, and they're the most feasible thing to access in the early game. The only thing on land that exceeds this is boars, and you're not playing towards boars at 7 minutes in the game. Let's not even try to imagine how many villages you'd lose trying to kill it before we even get into the detail of how far you'd have to run to reach it. And the intrusive thought here is anyone going to play into Pro Scouts? I do think the HRE players are going to. And it looks like that, yeah, they already have. So Dinkey's already gone into Pro Scouts, drops the stable as well. I'm expecting to see the same when I look across at Flash. Yeah, it's such an optimal play. Neither of your other two teammates necessarily rush towards Pro Scouts. So for one detail, the Abbasids, they're going to play heavily into their initial deer and then probably bushes. They'll be happy, and then they can switch into farms very comfortably. Meanwhile, ShinkuPrPr and the other China counterpart, which can be Vegie, they have plenty of sheep for the moment. They have their initial deer, and then once again, it's another example of a Civ that can switch over into farmlands. And look at this. ShinkuPrPr already going up to 3 TCs. Meanwhile, Vegie, I believe, yeah, he's still seeing it too. And there's no grab on the Song Dynasty yet either, on either side. So they're holding on to that. So ShinkuPrPr with the outright edge. Dinkey King already beginning his tech up. Meanwhile, Flash hasn't actually got there yet. Look at his numbers. His numbers are so weak. This is rough. Look at this. He's actually not optimized his lines at all. The way you want to do this, folks, is you want to have 1 or 2 extra people on the gold line over what you need to crack the 600 gold and 1200 food mark. The reason being is you want a little bit of surplus gold so you can afford the initial prelates and also knights before you're able to afford them off the back of passive gold with the Redux Cathedral. Instead, Flash is not optimized at all. His food is lagging behind, and his gold is just going to be boosted beyond the point of logic, right? And he's got surplus wood for no reason at this point. It's going to allow him to drop trip stables to go up to quad stables, which is a very powerful timing, but it's actually kind of underwhelming in the grand scheme of a 3-on-3. It's not as powerful as it is in a 1-on-1, where we've seen the likes of Hart just innovate this build and just dominate so many different players with it. So unlikely that he's going to go for the trip or quadruple stables. He might get 1 or 2 stables to try and ingress into the center so that he can try to cover the relics, but for the moment, he's behind. Dinkey King about to complete the tech up, sits down 2 more stables at the front of his base. He's probably going to get some horsemen out. The whole purpose of this, by the way, is to run interception and prevent the prelates from getting the goodies. There you go. Castle Edge reached by Dinkey. Flash currently underway. It's going to be about a 10-minute marker, which means that probably Dinkey's already got 1 of the relics banked by then. He's going to have an edge. That means he's going to be able to boom up into Imperial quicker. And if we start considering Wonder victory conditions, it could give him the edge. But I want them to be very careful with this. I think whoever gets enough gathered together out of the 2 HRE players to go Wonder first might lose the game for their team. Because you have to think of the Wonder victory as an Imperial Age upgrade, right? On crack cocaine. What do I mean by that? Well, one of the big details you have to keep in mind, the fragility of teching up is it leaves you weak initially. 1, you invest huge amounts of resource at that time in the game to tech up. 2, you have to get the tech bonuses to actually get value out of that tech up, right? And good players will identify this and exploit it. They will attack you before you're ready. And the whole point behind Wonder Victories is they're meant to give you a win condition stationed in your base, but they're meant to leave you weak off the back of doing it. And paying 3,000 of each resource does exactly that, even for the HRE if you rush towards it. And if you do that, that then opens up a possibility where Flash goes, okay, I'm not going to go for Wonder Victory. Instead, I'm going to drop extra military buildings. We're going to play towards sacred sites, and then we're going to push into your base while you're still weak. So very careful. Don't rush it. Take your time. Cruise towards it. Because at this rate, you are going to always be ahead of Flash, and that will give you an inherent edge that might force a mistake out of the Cyan Blue player here. And more relics coming in. So 3rd one already banked. Still 1's in the north. So Seither can gather some himself as well if he chooses to do so. Is underway now with the tech up into the culture wing. Everything standardized for the Abbasids. On the other side, that hasn't been started yet. Neptune. Is he? Yeah, he's sidestepping. Wow, he's up to 4 TCs now. Meanwhile, on the other side, it's only 3 TCs out of Seither. Remember, the Abbasids are usually the quickest to TC boom up because they can afford it quicker than other civs. Everyone thinks that China is the best TC booming civ in the game. That's actually not true. They are the most efficient TC booming civ in the game in terms of like the production rates, in terms of like getting their village count up, right? But if you look at it from a resource perspective, the thing about the Abbasids is they're able to afford the TCs quicker because, well, for a start, when they tech up, they don't waste any villages off their production lines getting their tech ups, right? It's automated. They just build it in the wings inside the House of Wisdom. The other important detail is fresh foodstuffs. Fresh foodstuffs reducing the cost to 25 food means it's much more affordable at an earlier point for you to sustain output of villages from multiple town centers. And still only 4 TCs over here. Meanwhile, 3 for China. When we look in Vegie's base, he's sitting on 3 as well, but he's about to tech up. So he'll be the first non-HRE player to crack up into Castle Age, and this will give him an edge right now. He's a decent margin ahead of his counterpart. Yeah, ShinkuPrPr, I don't know what the play is here. Like, why are you lagging so far behind? Okay, he's not. Sorry, it's a UI bug. That's a really weird UI bug. Usually you get the landmark like display here, but when we click on ShinkuPrPr, we don't seem to get one. Yeah, you see we get one for Neptune. That's really weird. So not too far behind, thank God. Otherwise, this would have been very one-sided. Usually the way this plays out at this stage is if you give an extra minute to one of the Chinese players, their fire lance count is too high, and they'll win the initial battle, and then they'll push you into your base. Speaking of pushing, Flash looking to push out and find something to assault, and Seither goes early into the spears. This is cool. Not many players do this. There's some utilization behind it. The whole logic is that you will have a frontal force to then build your siege weapons with, and you'll have the quality units of the knights to protect you, right? Seither's your siege line. It's an interesting way to play this. Because the Chinese player on their side got ahead of his counterpart, I think the intent here is to have Vegie play into the raiding force with the fire lances, and then in the meantime have Seither be your raid force, right? Be your siege force, rather. Because although you can make tankier units with astronomical clock towers, the problem with relying on that in this type of game is that they have to run all the way across the map, and they are very slow. Even when you consider having Yuan Dynasty with the extra 15% movement speed and greased axles, it's still just a cart rolling down a flat road on its own. You're going to be waiting quite a long time to even see it move a bit. So Seither guarding out here. Oh no, Flash. Flash, this hurts a lot. Oh my god, he's only got 2. So he's going to be crippled on trying to get the 3rd one. The spearmen aren't moving across, though. Seither, he doesn't see this. Remember, we have God Vision. He does not. So he did not know that those priests were there. That would have been a big deal as well. Oh, sorry. No, Dinkey is here. I'm an idiot. Ignore me. I'm getting mixed up in the colors. Yeah, so Dinkey's in position. This is really important, by the way. The Prelate needs to get this final relic because right now you're at a 300 gold deficit to your counterpart from the HRE player on the other side, which is Dinkey, who already beat you in the tech up, right? And although you're both in Imperial now, he's going to scale better than you because look at the surplus gold. He's doubling you up right now. And you can't access this anymore. Remember that any prelate you lose here costs you an extra 100 gold. But that's not the important detail. On a map this big, the important detail is that old man takes a hell of a long time to go collect, right? It's just soon TM. That's what it feels like because you have to go all the way across the map. There's no relics on the south side, so you're really crippled on getting that 3rd relic in. So it does mean that production rates are going to be behind that of Dinkey King. In fact, if we look at the count on the eco side as well, Dinkey up at 66, Flash currently sitting at 59. So already an eco deficit in terms of villages, and now most definitely in terms of relic. Seither trying to sneak these rams around the back. It's interesting as well that they're prioritizing the Chinese player. I think they want to get rid of him before he booms up into potential fire lancers, but that's not the intent. Look what ShinkuPrPr's doing. This is so cool and different. Not enough players actually utilize this. The Palace Guard at 1.58 tiles per second. I'll remind you guys, cavalry move at 1.62. And when you get close enough to charge with Palace Guard, you actually do reach the cavalry. This is really cool. Not enough players do this. Everyone just thinks that Fire Lance is the only way to play it, but Palace Guard with Nest of Bees is actually pretty spooky. And it gives you that consistent burst, right? It's not just that one punch and done. That's the problem right now if you go hard into Fire Lance. It's just one tap and that's it. And look at this, Dinkey King guarding the relic, picks it up. Even if he doesn't actually get it back to his base, it's the fact he's drawing it away and wasting Flash's time. It's more time that he's not gathering the resources he wants from his Regnitz Cathedral. And wow, Dinkey, he might actually get the relic as well. They misplayed this. They should have cut across, but they couldn't. Just not in position for it. And now, as a result, Flash is going to be the one suffering. Engagement, spears on both sides, and the numbers for Seither. He can hold here. There's not enough Palace Guard. Although they are quality up against the spears, there's just too many spears right now. And the wrapping coming around the back from Dinkey King with just a few knights could do a lot of damage. But he needs to wait. He doesn't. Instead, they brace. They turn around, dealing with him instead. But that means they're forfeit on the south side here. And they are in a problematic situation. They can't get out of the base because Seither's always here. There you go. Switch over to Man-at-Arms now. Neptune trying to get that quality unit in this engagement. Still just Spearman for Seither. He'll eventually lose the troops. It's the fact that he's holding them back, though. In the meantime, they're capping these sacred sites. Dinkey already took this one. They need to shift to the southern ones at some point. Force your opponents to come out before they're ready to fight you. That's the goal here. Charge in. And after all that, Seither still has spears standing. Outstanding, I think, is the way I describe this. Good hold, and now the Ram on the side just distracting a few of his villagers. Will eventually die. It's the fact you're also just keeping villagers off their production lines right now. And more Rams now being built in the front because there's enough spears left over. Man-at-Arms switch over now coming out. In the meantime, into the center goes Vegie, trying to get onto those resource pockets. Remember, if this goes long-term, you have to try to extract as much out the center of the map, right? Because eventually, your opponent's going to run out of resources in the middle of their base. And if you've already extracted everything in the center, that means you just have an economical advantage. And remember how a lot of these late game situations play out. If you talk about late game, it's not really necessarily decided by this big wham bam thank you ma'am outskill fight. It almost just becomes a zerg back and forth until someone dries up, right? It's a water gun fight. That's how you have to think about it. And whoever has the biggest super soaker is going to win. Rams moving in. These walls can be repaired quite quick though. Pass guard riding out. Fire Lancers are here. Remember, they have that splash damage, so you do not want to engage them like this. And Hand Cannoneers on the front, he needs to be careful. Neptune can lose these right now. But Dinkey King, he's running interception against his own teammate, but it doesn't matter. He's on top of the Hand Cannoneers. That's the important detail. He'll back away from the choke point. Doesn't want to get engaged on by the Nest of Bees any longer. Those Hand Cannoneers, they can be spooky, but he hasn't got the quantity yet. He's going to charge out into the open field. The Nest of Bees are out of location at the moment, though. Springel's unable to snipe, remember. Springel's taking snipe over Palisades, but not over these stone walls. But the fight, once again, looking good for Get on the Deer. They're keeping the pressure up. The Rams are going to look to move in around the back. Springel's are guarding on the back foot. Fire Lancers will disengage. They want to draw and peel them away from their base, where the Nest of Bees have to come out to play. And once they are out to play, that's where the Springels can just wipe them out quickly. Chase on. Spears making the difference here. So many hard spearmen coming out from ShinkuPrPr. Seither, meanwhile, wrapping in with the Man-at-Arms, trying to get rid of the reinforcements as they trickle in one by one. But that means he's exposed to the Nest of Bees. Going to lose a lot of troops here if he's not careful. New Age reached. Another player ticks up into that Imperial Age. There's just two people who are still sitting in Castle, and they are each on different teams. And different civs, in fact. And these bombards, Dinkey needs to be careful. You can lose a lot of them very quickly. They need a forward base, and here it is. Yeah, this is the move from Dinkey. I like they've done this. I need to see this out of more players. I hate how often I've been watching Hill and Dale, and everyone's reinforcing from their base. China gets away with it to an extent because it's cavalry. But if you're playing HRE especially, the side that wins with HRE and HRE typically is the one that builds the forward base because they have somewhere to quickly reinforce from. And I love that he's doing this even for stables, right? Because although the cavalry can move fast, you want to be able to keep yourself pop capped at all times in these fights. That's the difference maker, right? If 200 is a limitation and you're going to reach it quite easily when you're talking about 3-on-3s, you just want to have the ability to reinforce as quickly as the defending player. That means if you ever take a win, you actually keep that advantage as you push in and they're trying to replenish their army. Another tech up. It's just Seither lagging behind now, but I believe the tech up should be underway, right? Yep. He's got 1 minute and 20 seconds, though, so the quality of Neptune is going to outshine him soon. Elite Spearman already being achieved. I believe, yep, he has got him up to Elite Man-at-Arms as well. So Seither is the liability. That's why he needs to go to siege weapons and cover his teammates. He needs Mangonels right now. I don't like these building the Springels. You need Mangonels. 3 Mangonels right now would wipe Neptune's army. But instead, no, not able to do so. And Flash rides on in onto the bombards. Dinkey King's going to lose one. The other one looking to back up. Didn't go for the greased axles, so they're incredibly slow to move away. Fire Lancer's looking to re-engage. Vegie needs to get that upgrade, though. Needs them in elite status. That's a decent increase in damage. I think it adds about 3 or 4 damage, and that's across a splash. So if you hit 4 or 5 units, that's adding 15 to 20 damage to your initial hit. That's a big booster to the damage in the fight. Right now, also being outclassed by the Elite Spearman. Doing 40 damage per poke against a unit that has 135 health. He's trying to kite him to get the splash damage each time, but it's just exposing more of their production line, right? They're trying to get this military infrastructure down, but they didn't have the force in place to defend it. And now Seither's trying to make up for it, but remember, he still isn't teched up yet. And because you play as the Abyssins, you have no way of racing forward ahead of this timer. You're locked behind it, and it means that you just don't have the quality. You're basically cannon foddering this front. And for the moment, it is working, but now with the Elite Fire Lancers starting to show up, I'm getting slightly concerned. Nest of Bees is going to be exposed. Nice move by Vegie. Up in elite status, and he's able to burn through these quickly, remember. Don't blink or you might miss it. 55 damage per torch being thrown here. He'll back away after the Nest of Bees gone. That's his biggest concern. Neptune trying to wrap around. Oh, these Sprinkles are not defended. Seither will engage. Nice line. We'll hold. It will allow the Sprinkles to actually remain intact, at least one or two of them. Meanwhile, Neptune running rampant through the lines, keeping the Fire Lancers at bay. I love that he's committed to this. The Ibises are fantastic for late-game spears up against China. Remember that you get the Phalanx research, which doubles the range of your spears. So you're actually able to not only brace to stop them from getting the splash damage on the initial hit, but then you follow up with a secondary line of spears stabbing them. It kills them in the blink of an eye, even at 160 health. Speaking of dying in the blink of an eye, they will not last long here in these choke points. It doesn't work to their advantage, remember. They're kind of capped on how many can stab, right? You've got 2 or 3 in the front line between these buildings. Meanwhile, Neptune can have about double that number attacking you, right? Because the spears poke over your front line. The other cool detail of this, by the way, it's very hard to utilize regularly in these engagements, but if you position your man-at-arms at the front and you spearmen behind, man-at-arms are more tanky, right? So they'll take the initial damage of a charge in, and then the spearmen stab over the top and hold you in place. Flash. These buildings are gone in a flash, so name is appropriate. And forward base is going to be lost. And I'm getting a little bit concerned that we might start to pivot into a victory condition of a different type here than killing. Because you've got a lot of room now if you are the Pangolins here. Push through again. Most of the forward base gone. You need a fallback plan. You need it fast. Slow moving army incoming from Seither. Wrapping around the back onto the bombard line. That's good. Those bombards are going to move away quickly, though. Look how speedy they are. 1.21. This is the power of China. This is the absurdity of China. Yuan Dynasty is not balanced at all. 15% movement speed on all your units, including your villagers, including your siege weapons, everything. Good luck catching a bombard moving at 1.21 tiles with a unit that moves at 1.12. Charge in. Flash negates it again. Remember, the HRE can't brace, by the way, so Fire Lancers are usually quite good against them, but it really doesn't matter when the numbers aren't in your favor, as we're seeing right here. And now they're in a dangerous situation. This is the big base in the center, right? And it's about to be exposed. The charge-in's coming out from the north. Pangolins are committing here. Flash holding his own in the center. Bombards are adorable. Not that effective in this situation, though, especially once the Fire Lancers reach them and they're wrapping through. The barracks are falling too quickly. They have nothing to hide behind anymore. And with the Fire Lancers in number here, ShinkuPrPr will just sink the entire siege army of his counterpart trying to play on the other side. Meanwhile, ShinkuPrPr establishing a forefront with the keeps being dropped. Sacred Site is not accessible on the west side right now due to the base from Seither. So this push through will give them central control, but it won't give them the victory condition of Sacred Site straight away. Wrap in, more troops coming in. Neptune sieging on the east side as well. They just keep trying to replace everything lost, but it's too slow at this rate. And they haven't really got much room left in their base to build an army in here. So much of this room is just capped up already on economy houses and stables. Slowly but surely, they are losing ground. I think they need to calm down. They need to actually get up to 200 and push out together. The problem right now is they're trickling in. And because the numbers are always favoring the northern team here, the Pangolins, it means they're never actually in a situation where they're behind, right? Because they even up by the time they arrive. This might be the difference maker, though. Vegie, look at the numbers. 37 Fire Lancers moving in. Straight in on the charge. Look at the damage done to the front line. Man-at-arms instantly gone on the side. You can see Seither wrapping around, holding them at bay as he tries to regroup the front line. And Neptune, so many villagers on the front. If the Fire Lancers see this, the damage they could do. But they're scared. They don't want to pursue this too deep. The spearmen, they spook them. They back away from it. And on the side, the flank comes in. Flash. Now with these upgraded man-at-arms, they can do a lot of damage. You need to be careful. Vegie trying to utilize that splash damage to maximum effect from the Fire Lancers. But these choke points are working against him. He needs open field. He keeps going down in the meantime. ShinkuPrPr still has a siege army on the back foot. Neptune with a central base. A lot of units coming out here. The racks are just spamming perma spears. Good enough to counter out what Vegie's trying to do. And Vegie, this is uncomfortable. Pushed into a choke point again. This is not where you want to be. Mangonel's rolling in. Flash, if he gets a good hit here, it could wipe the entire battalion of Fire Lancers. Or maybe just get rid of Seither's army instead. The man-at-arms locked in combat here. The Mangonel's the difference maker. That front line is going to fold again. Bombard's trying to siege in. Does get rid of one of the Mangonels. Second one is still standing for the moment. Should get one more shot out before it falls. And these Fire Lancers are delayed from ShinkuPrPr. ShinkuPrPr is slowed down. Yeah, there's no forward base. Okay, that's an important detail. He's throwing his team under the bus here. He hasn't got enough Fire Lancers. Instead, it's all about Vegie right now. And this choice to not build a fort base as China is turning my brain into vegetables. I mean, I kind of understand it, right? You want that reduced cost coming out from the Spirit Way, but just a few stables maybe. Just to reinforce quicker could make the difference, but it doesn't seem to matter. Seither's army is gone. He's slow to move across to reinforce, and it looks like Vegie's going to be forced back once more, and that's going to expose the bombards. Meanwhile, on the left, moving in again. More of these buildings soon to fall. On the northern side, you can see that actually Seither is being prevented from re-engaging this fight. And that's a big detail, remember. He built a fort base outside towards the center here, but he's only pushing man-at-arms and spears. He's the slowest to arrive at all times. He needs a fort base. He needs it now. Meanwhile, pushing coming. More keeps being dropped. Neptune just establishing foothold after foothold here. Really starting to give them the edge. I don't think we've had a wonder dropped yet on either side. I could be wrong. It doesn't look like it, though. So this could be heading towards a landmark victory, if anything. And that would be impressive. I don't think I've seen a landmark victory in a 3v3 yet. Not in the Pro League. Not in competitive setting. Usually it comes down to either a GG before it reaches that, or it's Sacred Site / Wonder victories forced. Flash pushes them behind their walls. Comfortable with the damage he's done here. They're going to pursue the army. Vegie has to engage. That's not good, though. The braces come out. The trades are not going to be favorable. A lot of these fire lances are going to fall for just a few troops taken. And he doesn't have the splash anymore. He's re-engaging. Big mistake. But this is because he's out of position, right? He's on the east side. He knows he's going to get pinched by Flash's reinforcements. He has no choice. Instead, he's trying to get rid of the keep constructors here. And this time, he will be able to prevent Neptune. Neptune cannot build it quick enough. And the bombards will be able to get through this keep. Meanwhile, on the northern front, looks like Seither has started to get a foothold here. He's dragging attention away and distracting ShinkuPrPr at all times while gaining ground with the keep drops. And they need this. Remember, they're still blocking the Sacred Site victory on the northwestern side here. It's important that they never lose this front. If it ever actually folds, then they're going to give access to the Sacred Site, and then all of a sudden there's an easy victory condition which you can sit on as the Pangolins. Man, you can just hear those pop caps always being cracked. There's no end to this on either side. Dinkey King trying to move out with the villager army. Might as well. They're cost efficient. Only 12 food each. If they can get new infrastructure down, if they get a new district, then you are solid and good to go. But Flash beats him to the punch. He's going to walk out and realize what is happening right outside his base. And he was trying to wall to the south. It'll get those walls down, but this is the important detail. Keep in place, and racks being dropped. Flash will not be denied. And with the spears of Neptune here, there's no way that Vegie can move south and raise this all to the ground. It would take too long, and it would expose him too long. Instead, he's going to try and wrap onto the spears. Spears that are braced in the wrong direction, but it won't matter. They'll turn around, and they'll poke and stab you down in the blink of an eye. The north side, it is still just ShinkuPrPr being locked in with Seither, but nobody's gaining ground anymore. Instead, the bombard's starting to make the difference. It's giving ShinkuPrPr the edge to push through. And this is the weakness that Seither has. In this one-on-one engagement, he doesn't have the siege weapons. This is the difference. The bombards, the clock tower bombards, so tanky and able to snipe out these man-at-arms, these static slow units, that by the time they reach the siege line, half of them are already dead. And it means that he's losing in the north, despite the fact that every once in a while he ripples out. It's instantly forfeited by the reinforcements of Fire Lancers, wiping out what's left. South side still blocked in here. This is getting close to where you maybe consider a wonder, just to try and trigger a victory condition. But I don't even know if you need it. If you can roll the bombards across any point, you can just access the base. It's difficult right now, though. It looks like some of these buildings were raised, so Flash is trying to build new infrastructure here to reinforce this quickly. Spears coming out. Like we said, not very effective compared to counterparts because, of course, they can't brace. But when you're talking about these choke points, when you talk about the fact that Vegie's being forced to engage against his will, he's going to lose a lot of troops regardless. And look at this. They branch off. They go north. They've decided to stop wasting time with this. They're heading over to Seither. Seither's got a lot of exposed economy. He's running out of resources in his base. He needs this wood. In fact, he needs this wood more than anyone else, right? His spearmen can be a big difference maker in these fights, but you have to be able to afford them. In the meantime, south side. Flash, he stuck in with the keep. He got past the stone wall line, so this isn't even going to be an expansion that Dinkey can access. And I'm concerned. That does mean that Get on the Deer are going to run out of resources very quickly. They've picked their base apart, right? There's barely anything left. They're working on straggler trees, and after that, where do you go from there? Because right now, you're boxed in on all fronts. North side. Lancers once again getting overwhelmed, but that's going to buy time for the bombards to back away. Those bombards that seem infinitely evading any problems right now. If only there was cavalry here, they'd maybe be threatened, but against the spears and man-at-arms, just never the case. And everything has calmed down. But remember what we said about this. When you reach this calming stage, what's really going to matter is the person who has access to the center. And right now, the person who has access, the team who has access to the center is Pangolins. The double-agent Pangolins are all over this. And I think the gold veins are almost all tapped dry, right? There's barely any left here. Yeah, this one's about to be picked dry, and I think that might be the last one. It looks like there's some reserves from Seither. I like this move out of Seither. This was responsible. It's something the other players should have done. They should have taken the resources in the center first, so they had a fallback plan. But now they don't. Now they're in trouble. Here you go. Wonder has finally been constructed. Wait, who actually... Okay, it's in Vegie's base. That is a big ask. I think that's the first time I've got to see the Chinese one. It does look fancy, but now the pressure's going to ramp up. The walls are already down. Seither trying to hold here. Trying to push them between a rock and a hard place. Dinkey King now flanking from the south. Means they're going to wipe this force stuck in the center. But the bombards, that's the problem. Look how many bombards are here. Look how many troops you're losing to this. That's the difference maker. ShinkuPrPr has not had large quantities of fire lancers because he doesn't need them anymore. All ShinkuPrPr needs is these bombards. They eat up a lot of his pop cap, but as long as they survive, everything else dies. That's going to allow him to slowly get access at this rate. Dinkey King trying to hold for the moment. Neptune is going to lose the army in the base. But Neptune, look at this, it's a full base. He's already in. They're moving across. They need to get rid of this quick. Reinforcements trying to come in. Fire Lancer line is being resumed. Neptune pushing out even more spears. The crawling continues. They have finally reached the breach, and they will run straight through it. And there's no one here guarding right now. Keeps being dropped by Dinkey King, but the problem is they're so exposed. Look how quick of a route they have to access the Wonder over here. It's not that far to go. And they're moving in quick. Fire Lancers on top of this could burn this down pretty fast. Bombards through the breach. The keep won't last long. Mangonel fire coming in. Seither needs to be careful. He doesn't have siege weapons of his own. He's stuck in a cluster's choke point as well. Damage coming out. Underwhelming right now. They need more Mangonels at the front, if anything. And he's also focus firing in the wrong location. So Seither holding a lot longer than maybe he should, but the wraparound is coming in the meantime. They are gaining ground, and there's no attempt to snipe out reinforcements here. Seither's small attempt with 3 bombards is not good enough. Seither holding for the moment, but those bombards in position are starting to cause some trouble. Keep is still alive. Repairs continue. Flash trying to snipe out a few of these villages as it goes. But here you go. They ride through. This is the detail. Neptune, he's getting the foothold. In with the keep rush. And it looks like they're surrendering over. Vegie will tap out first, and it looks like we are going to need a game 3. The Wonder attempt is too late. The greed is punished. And we will finally, for the first time in Pro League, get to see a map number 3.